Brian once told me a story that he was talking to people at Columbia and teaching them how to write, to discuss how to write screenplays. And he said, I want everybody has to go and write a screenplay without dialogue, which is of course anathema to what a normal writer thinks of. It's like trying to be snappy and talking to each other. And he said, in other words, you have to think about how to express yourself in a screenplay without people talking, because that's how Brian shoots. Brian sees the sequences of things visually, and the dialogue sort of, is the icing. And so he was perfect for this. And what you're going to see in this movie is sequences that really play to that kind of wow, that kind of great visual style.
So when you're coming down here on these guys, it's actually easy.
You feel that Brian De Palma has risen to the extremely rigorous challenge of explaining the greatest single unsolved murder in American history. That, like me, this was a story that he was born to tell.
So much is determined by the locations and the sets you build. And I scouted these locations in Hollywood and Los Angeles. Then I scouted all the locations in Berlin when we had all this German financing. And then I scouted all the locations in Rome when we had some kind of Rome or Italian thing working, and that fell apart. Then we wound up in Sofia. Bill Notes, we're all lit for this, aren't we?
The first thing everybody should remember, we shot this movie in Bulgaria. We had to recreate Hollywood in Bulgaria. This was not an easy task.
But we had a great designer, and Dante was able to build, all these large places like Hollywood Land, or these streets that were, one time they were for the Zoot Suit riots, another time they were where the shootout was, and beyond that where the body was discovered, because none of those locations exist anymore in Los Angeles.
I went in the real place, which now is completely different, but we rebuilt exactly the same place with the old picture I have had for the real place. So all the research we did is very close to the reality when this happened.
And he actually managed to create beautifully Los Angeles of 1947. We built up streets, we created up interiors, created up a police station of 1947, Los Angeles in Bulgaria, which is amazing.
We shot almost 2 weeks in Los Angeles because it's difficult to always give this kind of a flavor. It's almost impossible. So we shot in a very good place, like a piece of Hollywood Boulevard. We shot in downtown. We shot so in many locations here. So I think when the film will be cut, I think they got blended the real location with what we built. I think work pretty well.
My first question is it only at the end position? They're not going to walk
only
into
at
it?
the end position.
Oh, okay.
Only. So it was easy on this one because Brian, from the very beginning, he mentioned film noir, and obviously. So that already was settled from the very beginning. It's going to be a dark picture. It's going to be a lot of shadows. It's going to be interestingly lit and composed, and and knowing Brian De Palma the way he likes, to move the camera and devises, interesting shots.
With noir, you try to, high contrast, a lot of shadows, low angles, and the whole movie is a descent into hell, basically. Just things get worse and worse. We used a little desaturation in the flashback in the beginning, everything up to the fight. And then we used, kind of very strong contrasty colors in the bulk of the story. But, when you're dealing with the, artists of this level, Bill Moss and Dante, they bring a whole look to a movie. And I have a very specific way of shooting things, and it all works well, in a way where you see something like you had never quite seen before.
Bucky, this is my mother, Ramona Cathcart Linscott.
Nice to meet you.
Whenever he could, actually, Brian would use the technique of sustaining a shot for as long as he can. And I like that approach, actually, to movie making, what Brian has, because You know, many people today think is making movies is like shooting a lot of shots and cut them together, you know, like rock videos, you know, cut. I think it's disturbing in a way when you deal with a feature film movie. It should be telling a story, and it should not remind you that we are making a movie.
Without him, Mr. President, I'll sue you! Leave her alone! No!
He is very visual. When you see his movies, they're beautiful. The way he moves the camera and how his camera helps tell the story. You know, it's he's got that Brian De Palma stamp on his movies.
I look at a scene and then I figure out what's the best position for the camera for this particular piece of action. I'm very aware of physical locations. I take a lot of pictures and I figure out how to maximize the visuals for this particular place. And of course I design locations for sequences. In this particular case, we built the streets and the houses that the Black Dahlia was, the lot she was discovered on, and the building where the shootout takes place. That was all created in a, in a three-dimensional model that I figured out how I wanted to use it. And I, of course, looked at that crane shot in my model, years before we actually shot it. And interestingly enough, that does not happen that way in the book. The killing of Baxter Fitch and the discovery of the Black Dahlia happened sequentially. And I don't know when I suddenly got this idea. There was a certain amount of things, because of budgetary problems, we had too much stuff to shoot, and we didn't have the places to shoot it because you're dealing in period. But every time you get out in the street and have cars and chases down streets, I mean, this is big money. So one day I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, what happens if Lee is setting up Baxter Fitch to be bumped off, and while that's going on, the Dahlia's body is discovered in a lot beyond these buildings. And because it's the intention of Elroy to have all these stories sort of going parallel, and then suddenly they intersect in the most unusual way. You don't see the way the stories are going to collide.
And so Bucky and Lee drive up at night to stake out ostensibly Junior Nash's house. And then it dissolves to the next day where the pimp guy and the two women characters are on the street when the cameras takes this long boom up over the building that they're in and reveals in the background a woman where she's discovering the body of Elizabeth Short. Then the shooting begins. And everything just breaks loose, and some of it's in slow motion there. It's very effective. I mean, you don't need any dialogue. You just watch it, and it just unfolds beautifully. And then Brian often has scenes of violence in his films, but in every case, it's very operatic in its style, the way it's shot, the way it's edited, and it draws the audience in that way.
There are two big set pieces. One when we have the shootout in which Baxter Fitch gets killed and the body of the Dahlia is discovered. And the other one is the sequence where Bucky follows Lee to this meeting downtown.
This scene is particularly interesting visually because of the different way that light and shadow plays, and also the different speeds, the slow motion that Brian uses. And everything unfolds very quickly, and yet some of it is in slow motion.
There's a lot of mystery to it, and hiding in shadows and staircases and people revealing themselves in dastardly ways. It really takes a master to set that suspense up. And I'm not a master at that, so it's interesting to watch Brian do it.
I had to bring all the elements together in this location and then stage some kind of dramatic scene that sort of did everything that happened in the book.
You can't see who it is. It was originally shot so you could see a little bit of it, but in the digital intermediate suite, we blacked it out so that you couldn't recognize the face of the person, because obviously you want to reveal it later. And so it's an interesting interplay with that person approaching, the person with the wire around Lee's neck, Josh coming up, and also, obviously it all culminates with them. Josh is a little bit too late. They go over the railing, and then a classic De Palma style. Suddenly that fountain, which seemed so innocent in the beginning, is the cause of death of both of these two guys. You know, almost even a little bit of an homage to Scarface with the water and the fountain and the red blood in the water.
In the Elroy book, the image of the man who laughed is very much on Mrs. Linscott's mind. And she scars the Dahlia in precisely that manner. And it was important for me to establish what she was trying to achieve and how she carved her mark into this girl's face and where that image came from. So I had to find the movie, The Man Who Laughed, where you actually see the man who laughs face, and that was very fortunate.
I was surprised. I thought that Brian was it was gonna be a lot gorier. I felt like he was so compassionate and so gentle on that day, and I think in those scenes they're so technical. I mean, I think I had to remove my own emotions from that scene.
I felt the image of the mouth being slashed was strong enough that you didn't have to do anything after that. God knows they did many other things to her, and it's all detailed in the book, but I think it would have been too much to show an audience. That when I shot that image, nobody could even look at that, so I said, that's it.
The cadaver is presented in two halves, with bisection level with the umbilicus.
I withheld the whole display of the body until the end of the movie, even on, you know, the autopsy table, which normally would light so very clearly so you could see how the body had been dismembered. I had people looking at it, but I didn't show what they saw.
In the original script, the body was shown so many times, and Brian thought it was going to lose its effect, so he decided to save it for the very end, and that was just, in my opinion, that was stroke genius.
Josh will always be haunted with this image, much like in a lot of my other movies where some subconscious thing always, you know, holds you, whether it's, you know, Carrie grabbing you from a grave or something an image that you can't forget or let go of. And this is kind of the reverse idea of, you know, great stars are incredibly photogenic. The Black Dahlia, the reason it lives in our imaginations and mind is the images of that body in that lot, the irony of that.
I'm told that I'm very photogenic.
In all of Brian's films, I think music is featured, and certainly in many scenes is even considered a character. And this film is no different. We tried in doing some temporary music for the film. We tried different instruments, saxophone, piano, and the thing that seemed to work best stylistically was trumpets.
Hey, you haven't finished this plan yet. Finish that?
Brian got Mark Isham to compose the score, and he even performed, I think, all of the trumpet pieces. He's a virtuoso performer. And the music just blended so well and really brought out not only the sort of film noir style and feeling of the period, but it also brought out the emotions, especially with Bucky and Kay. I think it was really a strong musical choice.
The key to Mark is he's a great trumpet player. And I always heard a mournful trumpet. This is a blues type of movie. So he sent me some material, you know, using some of this trumpet stuff that he does. And it was like the voice of Josh. I mean, that was Josh's voice.
I needed to stop worrying about who killed the Dahlia and focus on where.
I think people are always fascinated by unsolved crime, and particularly this crime. I think because it was so brutal and so unexplainable, that it's interesting to see how people become attracted to that. So hopefully, this will feed that hunger.
Mr. Love, can you assure the public that you will find the murderer before he strikes again?
This killer will be caught.
I see this movie as an event. and the culmination of Brian De Palma's career. It is very much a historical romance. You could call it a crime movie, you could call it a film noir, and you could call it a thriller, and you would not be lying. I would hope that it draws a wide readership of people and that they're moved by the story of this sad little girl and by Bucky Blanchard's tortuous road to a partial redemption.
I've been pointing my gun at a lot of people this week. I haven't had a chance to shoot anybody yet.
It is a murder like no other, and it constellates the hideous question, why do men murder women?
It's very dark, and people are scared of it. That's why I think it was always difficult to finance, and ultimately very difficult to get a domestic distributor. But most studios were, scared of this. They were amazed we ever got it going. It's been around for a long time, and this movie will haunt you. You may come out saying, "Oh my God," but this is a movie you're not going to forget. The images in it are so strong, so vivid. They'll just be with you for a very long time. What's a sexy girl like you so sad about?